My name is Eniola Olaneyo. You keep watching the Mid-Morning Show.
Good morning. You're welcome to the Monday edition of the Mid-Morning Show on BCOS television. I am your host, Ifeoluwa Olaoye, and you know that I don't write solo. Oluwagbemiga, good morning.
Good morning to you, Ifeoluwa. My name is Oluwagbemiga Olabisi, and thank you for joining us on the Monday edition of Mid-Morning Show. Today we are observing something important, and that has to do with indigenous people, how they've contributed their own culture to this civilization for generations over generation. And today we are specifically looking at Nigeria and the Yoruba people, because that is who we are. That is what makes us. In fact, there is a way culture is embedded in us, that it reflects on how we relate with people and how we do things. But however, things are changing, right?
They are. And then that's when we ask questions like, what relevance do they hold in our contemporary society? Like, do Yoruba practices still matter? Important questions like that are what we're going to be asking today. Yes. But then our guest will be doing justice to that when he comes on board. Before he does that, let's go see this feature on cultural diversity. We'll be right back.
Culture, in a broad sense, is the way we live, the way of life of a group of people. It is a phenomenon created through human endeavors to transform nature and the environment in order to sustain and enrich life. The culture of the Nigerian people is predominantly shaped by its multi-ethnic groups. Nigeria has about 527 languages. Among these are also over 1,150 dialects and ethnic groups. The Hausa and Fulani in the north, the Igbo in the southeast, the Yoruba, who predominate in the southwest, the Tiv in the north-central Nigeria, and the Efik Ibibio make up the 6 largest ethnic groups in Nigeria. Other ethnic groups, sometimes called minorities, are found all over the country, especially in the north and middle belt areas. The Fulani, who are traditionally known to be nomadic, can be found throughout West and Central Africa. The Fulani and Hausa are majorly Muslims, the Igbo majorly Christians, as are the Efik Ibibio and Anang. The Yoruba are equally likely to be either Christian or Muslim. Due to the deeply indigenous tone of the country, indigenous religious practices remain important to all ethnic groups. The major factors that bring about cultural diversity are language, dressing, religion, food, and sometimes color. Igala and Yoruba languages are so similar that Igala is considered a dialect of Yoruba. The northwestern Yoruba, which aligns with the Oyo Empire dialects, is known to show more linguistic innovation, as it is from there that Yoruba is said to have emerged. So, the Yoruba spoken there tends to be more profound and accented. The southeastern Yoruba, which is around the Benin Empire, is more of a watered-down form of the language, where new combinations of letters equal new pronunciations and meanings. Central Yoruba in language is similar to Yoruba. A Yoruba man would generally say "Ẹ káàárọ̀" as good morning. But if he were to be an Ijebu man, he would say "Ẹ̀sọ́." If he were to be from Ikare, he would say "Okun o." An Igbo man would generally say "Ututu ọma." But if speaking his dialect from Anambra, he would most likely say "Otutu ọma." A Hausa man would generally say "Inakwana." All this is because of the difference in dialects. Despite the fact that there are different dialects, there are unifying languages that are beautiful in their own right. When it comes to food, there are different delicacies each tribe has. the Yorubas with their amala dudu with begiri, the Igbos with their ofensala, the Hausas with their tuwo, each tribe with different foods they enjoy, which also can be enjoyed by anyone. And the traditional cap called abetiaja, an Igbo man is likely to be seen on buba and wrapper, adorned with beads. A Hausa man would wear babariga. The festivals are also an important part of culture. The New Yam Festival to celebrate a new harvest season in the east, Arugungu Festival in the north, Eyo and Osun Osogbo festivals in the west, and so much more. All of these traditions and differences are what make these cultures unique and beautiful, but they can also be a source of conflict. With about 527 languages in one country migrating and mixing with each other, there is sure to be a challenge because in any situation or circumstance, communication is key. A lack of understanding of the other person's language can turn the littlest of misunderstandings into a full-blown war. The mode of dressing in the North is certainly different from that in the West, which is also different from that in the East, and so on. Religion is the sole cause of so much conflict that is usually avoided as a topic for discussion. Christians, Muslims, and indigenous worshippers have always been at odds simply because of the difference in beliefs and methods of worship. Religion and ethnicity are now intertwined. Igbos are mostly Christian. Hausa and Fulani are mostly Muslim, while the Yoruba are a mix. In this mix, traditional worshippers will be found. Also, the food that a Yoruba man would eat, properly garnished with pepper, might be rejected by an ethnic Ibibio man who would prefer his afang soup over a Yoruba man's efo elegusi, and vice versa. It is human to have different tastes. Sometimes, although not often, color is seen as a reason for diversity. It is known that most light-skinned people are Igbo, most chocolate-colored individuals are Yoruba, and the dark-skinned ones are Hausa. It is easy for a dark-skinned person to be assumed to be Hausa just because of the complexion, even when that might not be true. It is important to note that despite all the difference in culture, tolerance and understanding of another man's culture is very important. Respecting another man's culture, understanding it, tolerating it, making room for it is not the same as adopting it. The mistake people often make is assuming that by tolerating another man's culture, they are losing theirs. This ideology is wrong. Tolerating and understanding another man's culture can only breed peaceful coexistence. Constant quarrels, arguments, debates, and so on about whose culture is superior will lead to nowhere but destruction of lives and property. In Nigeria, cultural diversity is studied and spoken of tentatively because of the tension that surrounds it. In a country of over 1,150 dialects and ethnic groups, it is only natural that there be cultural and ethnic tension from time to time. But it is imperative as Nigerians that we do not lose sight of the fact that we are one and the same people. As Nigerians, embracing the idea that each culture is different and unique is important. Once that is done, acceptance is the next stage, because no matter how different the culture, we are one Nigeria.
back to the Mid Morning Show on BCOS television, and we just saw that feature on cultural diversity, and I have to say, Oluwagbemiga, watching that,
we are indeed blessed in this part of the world. Honestly, we look at our culture, we look at our dressing, our food.
That food part.
Our food and our language. The way we use our language, especially when talking about Yorubas, Yoruba has a way of saying this and meaning it has different multiple things.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So it's honestly something that everyone needs to understand. But how well are we preserving it, and how well are we communicating our culture?
And which is why we're discussing what we're discussing today. Like you said earlier, we're reflecting on the UN commemoration of indigenous people, the knowledge system and cultural heritage, and particularly the Yoruba culture. And our topic of discussion today is why Yoruba practices matter. We have our guest here who will be doing justice to that. We have Mr. Moshood Abiola. He's a Yoruba culture advocate. You're welcome on board, sir.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay. Need I say, he's also the host of Biology in the Yoruba on our radio platforms. Yes. And congratulations too on your book.
Thank you.
The publishing of your book, Biology in Yoruba.
Yeah, thank you very much. Biology in Yoruba. Ìwé ẹ̀kọ́ ìṣẹ̀mí fún àwọn akẹ́kọ̀ọ́ àti olùkọ́. That is the title of the book.
Akẹ́kọ̀ọ́ àti olùkọ́.
Yeah, it is meant for students and teachers. And it is in accordance with the syllabus. So we follow the curriculum.
Before publishing, that's good. Congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so discussing why Yoruba practices matter. For people watching who may not really or fully understand what we mean by Yoruba practices, what would you say that means?
Well, I won't discuss that without touching the indigenous knowledge system that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Humans were made for survival. And we all survive from time immemorial. From the first man on earth to the ones we are currently, we all have to survive. And indigenous knowledge system is actually a cumulative empirical body of lifestyle that is passed from generations to generations for their survival. So for me to survive, for you to survive, you have to engage in indigenous knowledge system. As far as you are using chewing stick to clean your teeth, and also use soap. Either it is black soap, either it is white soap, because we have to differentiate it. You are practicing indigenous knowledge system. For a culture like Yoruba culture, a culture that invented potash to soften ewedu, we have our own indigenous knowledge system. Before the advent of the colonial era, before the pre-colonial era, with culture ambassadors, traditionalists, and even scientists. And myself, I am a scientist. There is nothing like we migrated from Saudi Arabia or something like that.
Okay, so where are we from?
Well, it is still being contested. That is why they said we have ghost gene. Because they couldn't find any fossil record to define our origin. So they are still conducting their research to know where we are from originally.
Okay. Mr. Moshood Abiola, before you go deeper,
attack, but not for long, because Hypo is here. Dirty floors and surfaces.
Not on our watch.
Dirty and stains no fit do us shakara. We got the remedy, original plaza. Hypo, go hypo.
Germs always find a way back.
No greed. Protect every day with Hypo.
Hypo, go hypo.
you're welcome back. Our discussion is still centered on why Yoruba practices matter with our guest, Mr. Moshood Abiola, a Yoruba culture advocate. And he's been taking us, in depth into how, that was where you stopped, how we came to be.
Yeah.
And you said it's still being contested.
Yeah, so it is still being contested and also being researched. Because for the Neanderthals, the Europeans and the Westerners, they found different fossils of their existence, of their ancestors. Mm-hmm. So they put it into records and also they put it into science. So when they are referring to some historical findings about the existence of humans and how the first man on Earth evolved, they will talk about the Neanderthals and also different races. But it is very difficult for scientists currently to pinpoint where the Yoruba people originated from. That is why they had to say we have a ghost DNA, because they are still conducting the research to have concrete evidence about our origin. Now, for a race, for a people whose origin is very difficult for scientists to trace, how could you possibly say we migrated from Saudi Arabia or we migrated from...
where do you think that put us? Because really, you said they've been searching and they couldn't find the origin.
Yeah.
So I think they just have to pin it down somewhere, or you said you've been doing your own research also, still finding. So at what point do you think we're going to get the origin, or we just keep searching?
Well, it is very difficult to actually predict when the origin will be discovered. But one thing I have come to realize is God is a God of diversity, and people that are living in different parts of the world, they were created there distinctively to hold and practice their culture, their ways of life, without having to migrate from one country to another. So it is very, very difficult for scientists to really predict that, okay, this is where this, we have over 10 billion people on Earth, different religion, different race. And when we are talking about indigenous knowledge system, if you bring a dog from America to Nigeria, the climate may not be favorable to the dog. Immediately you bring the dog around. Also, when you travel to America or any European country, you have to acclimate to the climate before you can live successfully. Now, for Yoruba people, we were created here to live here, and we interact with each other. Our languages evolve into different parts. We have the Ekitis, we have the Oyo language, which is the lingua franca of the Yoruba people. That is the Yoruba you have to write down. We have the Ijebus, we have the Ondos. So the Yoruba culture and language and people, they are very complex. To bring them to a rallying point, to bring them to a source, that this is one source of a people. That is why they still said we are ghost DNA, that it is still being researched. They are yet to conclude the research. So it is a very complex scientific way to determine this is the particular way of the Yoruba, and this is where they come from. That is why it is very hard.
There's no denying the fact that Yoruba has a way of doing their things right from onset. Our culture, our traditions, what we wear, what we eat, and we've been doing it. But coming down to this era, things are changing. We have modernization, we have technology, influence on things. How do you think, how do I put it now, what do you think happened that we are putting back our culture? We are putting back who we are, and we are embracing the external culture?
Well, one thing I have to congratulate Yoruba people for is our language is not one of the endangered in the world. Yeah, I have to congratulate us for that, because
at this point too.
Yes, our language is not one of the endangered, according to the United Nations.
Okay.
Our language is not one of the endangered languages in the world, because if you are looking for the most researched language in Nigeria, the Yoruba language is the most researched language in Nigeria. We have different scholars that are working day and night to ensure the Yoruba language and the way of life does not die. But let me just come out clearly. When I was at the University of Ibadan recently, I was speaking with one of our directors at the Center for Yoruba Language and Culture Engineering. He told me that he traveled to Germany and he was in a library and he saw one of the first published book of D.O. Fagunwa. So he said the Yoruba used in that book is different from the Yoruba they use in writing books currently. And all languages must evolve to prevent them from going extinct. So Yoruba language is evolving. The Yoruba language I will speak is different from the Yoruba language a typical Gen Z will speak. Even my fellow millennials, the Yoruba language they will speak is different from the one I will speak, just because I am in that line. So Yoruba language is evolving, just as the English language is evolving. And any language that is not evolving to the current trend will definitely die a natural death. So nothing is endangering our language currently, but we have to strive so hard to ensure the upcoming generation don't do unnecessary modification to our language more than necessary. So the revisionist mentality the modification we are trying to do to our language, we have to have a way of controlling it, from social media to different ways of presenting our proverbs.
But is that actually possible?
Yes, it is possible,
Controlling
because I think the elders in Yoruba land have to come in to regulate how people use their different social media platforms to explain the meanings of even proverbs. Because some Yoruba proverbs deal with logic, while some deal with moral. But in this generation, we are using logic to explain most Yoruba proverbs. One of the most contested Yoruba proverbs is Kilori lobe to fi waru sowo. A new generation will tell you Kilori lobe to fi garu owo. When I was consulting with elders and people that are repository of knowledge in the Yoruba culture, they told me it is actually Kiloritos lobe to fi waru sowo. Because when you want, it is a product of fermentation, and you have to eat it because it has something is in the soup. That is why you are picking locust beans out. But this generation will now say no reasonable person can pick locust beans. So it is garu. So why are you restricting your hand when you want to eat? So it is still being contested. That is one of the revisionist mentality we are bringing into the Yoruba culture, which we have to talk to our headers and scholars to really control. There should be a regulation, because any industry that is not regulated, the human brain is infinite. People can wake up one day and say, I want to say this about my culture. You don't even need to know maybe the person is deep-rooted in the culture or not. For example, I was at Trinity University at the just concluded Lagos Studies Association, where I presented my academic paper. So I happened to be around a panel discussion where they were discussing Ayangalu, the origin of the Yoruba drum. This person was narrating different stories of Ayangalu, linking it to feminism, linking it to different things.
Okay.
That means he cannot understand our story as we, the custodians of the culture. He cannot understand it. So they had to control him that you have to go back to conduct your research, because you are actually murdering the true story behind Ayangalu. He now had to say that the research is still inconclusive.
Okay, we have a lot of inconclusive here, the research. Okay, now we're still talking about the language. It's funny to me that you said that it's not part of the endangered languages we have, because it looks like, according to the United Nations, it's one of those things that it's so scary now, because people are terrible. Why would you speak Yoruba? How do you think we can change the narrative by preserving our language?
Because we have to create an eye-opener, awareness. We have to let them know our culture is one that has really stood the test of time. For a culture that witnessed 700 years of Arabian invasion and slavery, to the British colonization of 300 years. If our culture could survive almost 1,000 years of colonization and bastardization, definitely we should know there will always be traces of foreign language in our culture. But we have to create more awareness. We have to let the current generation know that there is no crime in speaking your language. Even it reflects in the names we give our children. People wouldn't want to give the children different wonderful Yoruba names again. You hear different English names, treasure, wisdom, and all these things, just because they believe it will give them a sense of belonging. When you go to the supermarket and you speak Yoruba language, there is a particular way they look at you. Even your girlfriend, your wife might say you are too local. Why are you always approaching people with the Yoruba language? Even when you go to offices in Yoruba land and you speak Yoruba to approach the boss, can't you express yourself in English? Just because they have made us know that their own language is the holiest one, while ours is demonic. There is a term I coined, like the fetishization of the Yoruba language and also culture. When you attach fetishism to everything that is pertaining to your culture. You call everything fetish. When you are having this, you pick a leaf to solve your headache, you chew a leaf every morning, you eat alligator pepper in the morning, the first thing that comes to mind is fetishism. When you wake up in the morning in front of this studio, you find a calabash. The first thing that will come to your mind is, oh, this is fetish. They want to do something to me. Because Yoruba say when you want to slaughter a black goat, you have to taint it in a very bad way. So when the Europeans came and they noticed these people have a very strong cultural system, even historically and scientifically, it has been proven that we invented the most concentrated alcohol. They call it ogogoro juna. But when the Europeans came and they found out that our own alcohol is more flammable compared to the one they are making there, they had to ban our own alcohol, that it is very dangerous in the society. So they created a law to ban it. They now introduced their own to us. That is to tell you that when they came in and they discovered we are mentally strong people, they had to first kill the morale in us. They killed the culture in us to make us embrace their own. And when they take our own down to their country, they rebrand it into something else. They are now selling chewing stick in dollars in the abroad. Even if you want to eat any Yoruba food, you have to spend dollars on it. That is to tell you that it is a mental and psychological issue. They have to make you understand that yours is bad before you now embrace their own. So we have to now bring it out that our own is not bad. It is good. We had our own science before they came. For a culture that knew that you cannot eat ewedu raw, you need to use ijabe to turn it into smaller particles for it to be ingestible for your intestines. For a culture that understand that when there is a Yoruba proverb, they said, Ki so biato debo, olugambela kesi. It took me a while before I understand the meaning of olugambe. Now I understood it is a leaf. And the meaning of that proverb, they use the proverb to sound a voice of warning to people. But behind that proverb, there is a healing practice too. Olugambe is a leaf, morning glory leaf. My biological sense made me understand the name of the leaf, morning glory leaf. And Sobia is guinea worm. It is also called dracunculiasis in biology. When it enters the human body, there is a tissue it affects and it creates its egg in the stomach before it now goes to the leg tissue to form a worm. The worm will come out of the leg. Now, Yorubas discovered how can we treat this? So they used the leaf of Olugambe, the morning glory leaf. For a culture that had their own science, to understand this is the leaf we can use to treat guinea worm, how will you now say that culture is local?
Okay, I think we have to come back to this to see what really happened and how we can wake up to start sensitizing people on how to keep and preserve our culture. After this break, we'll be right back.
It's under attack, but not for long, because Hypo is here. Dirty floors and surfaces.
Not on our watch.
Every day we Hypo. Dirty and stains no fit do us shakara. We got the remedy, original palasa. Hypo, go Hypo.
Germs always find a way back.
No greed. Protect every day with Hypo.
Hypo, go Hypo.
You're welcome back. This is still the Mid-Morning Show on BCOS Television, discussing why Yoruba practices matter with our guest, Mr. Moshood Abiola, who is a Yoruba culture advocate. Now, before we went on that break, where you stopped was actually quite interesting because I think, in a way, we've been brainwashed. If you ask me personally, I think for their practices to be imbibed, in us, they had to go through some sort of brainwashing, to change our mentality to embrace theirs. You understand? But when we talk about the Yoruba culture particularly, people usually focus on the language, the food, and even our dresses, what our clothes. Are there other things, that matter in the Yoruba culture, aside these things that people usually focus on?
Yeah, thank you very much. When scholars want to define the Ifa, they will say Ifa is a repository of knowledge. Well, to me, Yoruba culture is a repository of knowledge because we understood Mora right before the Europeans knew what Mora is all about. We knew about using chewing stick. We understood the antibiotic properties of leaves before even the Europeans invented their own antibiotics. But as a mentor of mine once said, he said, all gods are good, but the only God that will win the hearts of people is the one that has the highest PR. That is publicity. So if you don't publicize your own culture, there is no way you will not bring another one over your own culture. Yoruba culture is beyond just dressing and food. For example, there is a question I asked a league of pastors because there is a WhatsApp group where we discuss religion and culture. The question still remains unanswered till today. I asked them, I said, well, I have been conducting a research on the effects of drums on the modern, or let me just say Christian religion, especially as it is pertained to going into trance and vision. Because when they are celebrating the Osun Osogbo festival, Yoruba has made us understand there is a spirit embedded in the Dudun drum, there is a spirit embedded in the Shekere, there is a spirit embedded in the Bata drum. When you listen to these drums and their sounds, there is a spirit you are invoking that would actually make you enter into trance, and you will be speaking different things and seeing vision. It happens anywhere they are celebrating the at the Osun Osogbo festival, Sango and others. And now ask them, we have actually inculcated this drum into our churches. Does that mean people that go into trance in churches are under the influence of these drums? Because these drums, I now asked some pastors there, I said, you have traveled around the world. I know all cultures have psychic people, people that see things before time, people that engage in time travel. But what I want to understand is, do they also need to listen to drums in their churches before they enter trance? Or do they even go into trance in churches and cathedrals around the world, Rome and different places? The pastors told me, this thing I want to engage in the research, they are highly interested in it, but they cannot give me a perfect answer now because it is a very complex thing to discuss. Now, what am I trying to drive at is Yoruba culture is beyond just our language, dressing, as you asked me the question. It has to do with our drums. It has to do with the science that they brought to this world. Before Carolus Linnaeus, the scientist that gave plants their name in biology, Yorubas had Osayin, who is the father of herbs. It was written historically that Orunmila was the one that understood the use of plants, the ethnobotany of plants, how plants react with the human body. It was Orunmila that understood it. But Osayin was a younger brother to Orunmila who learned the art of herbal usage from Orunmila. Now, when you are looking at it, there are some claims in Yoruba proverbs that science has actually confirmed to be true. Science have conducted different research on the flavonoids in leaves like bitter leaves, and they have been able to confirm that it has anti-inflammatory properties. Also, let me give you an instance. There is a plant that the Yoruba loves to engage in their proverbs so much. They will say, Ti olukoso ba n pa igi, to ba n pa ọ̀pẹ. kó má ṣe yájú sí igi osè. They will also say tí Ṣàngó bá ń pa àràbà tó ń fa ìrókò ya bíi ti igi ńlá kọ́. Now, igi osè is baobab tree. Igi ńlá is another tree on its own with different mystical properties. But let's touch igi osè. Igi osè is one of those plants that has fireproof ability. It is fire resistant. Yorubas understood this through their proverb that no matter how raging the wildfire could be, it will never affect the baobab tree in the forest. Kò sí bí iná ṣe lè jó tó, ó máa dá igi osè sí ni, bẹ́ẹ̀ ni igi osè. Now, this igi osè that they are calling the baobab tree, science has confirmed it that its bark is so thick to an extent that it holds so much water that makes it fire resistant.
Sorry, I just want to chip this in here. Don't you think that this mystical properties that it's always coming up whenever we are talking about our theme is one of those things that keeps it away from from moving to different generation? For instance, scientists will come and tell us the reason. It's because of the bark, the thick bark of the tree. But if you're a person there's always a spirit behind the tree, there's always a spirit behind. Don't you think that's one of the things that is pushing it away?
Thank you very much. The invention of spirits in Yoruba land is actually a way of conserving aesthetically pleasing plants. What are we talking about? Conservation is a topic in biology where they told us to preserve plants that are very important to the society and also to prevent environmental degradation. Now, some research that some Yoruba scholars have conducted made us understand that when Yorubas attach mystical beliefs to a plant, it is actually to preserve the plant from being extinct. Although Yoruba language does not deal with the body alone. It deals with the mind, it deals with the soul, it deals with the spirit. I am not writing off the place of spirit, but most of the assertions that the Yoruba people make that don't enter that forest, it is actually to conserve those plants in it. But one thing I would correct is the practitioners of Yoruba culture and Isheshe, they have to reduce the scary parts of our culture. They have to make it pleasing to the upcoming generation that this is not bad. When you do this, it does not mean something bad will happen to you. I discussed something at Unilag a while ago when they were asking me questions at a paper presentation I presented concerning the biology pedagogy in Yoruba language. So they asked me when I made a simple submission that Yorubas will tell you not to urinate in the river just because if you do that, rain will fall on your wedding day. It is actually a way of promoting hygiene to make you understand that that river you are defecating in and also urinating in, some people at the end of the river are drinking it. It is a source of water to some people. So if you urinate there and you defecate there, it will carry diseases. That means we understood the knowledge of pathogens and epidemics, especially waterborne disease. That shows we have our own knowledge, and they attached different superstitious beliefs to these things so that it will be scary to you to engage in it.
Why not just come out clean?
Because it's looking like the scary part is now burning us.
Yes.
A doctor of mine, Dr. Omilani of University of Ibadan, will always say the Yoruba culture is actually a conservative culture because they believe an elder does not speak too much.
Maybe
they
we
will
are
say
too conservative.
Yeah, we are too conservative. They will say aboro lanso from Omoluabi. So they believe you should be able to decode. That is where the knowledge of encryption comes into mind.
Gen Zs cannot decode.
When you want, when you want to send a message to a warrior, Ibadan is a land of warrior. So if you want to send a message to a warrior in another town and you want to send your slave, you have to use encryption so that the slave you are sending won't understand. So scholars said it is the knowledge of Aroko that made the Europeans invent emoji. Because Aroko is a type of emoji. So there is a way. For me now, there are some emojis I don't understand when you send it to me. And when you ask Gen Zs out there, they understand different emojis. They will be telling you this is what this means. So Aroko is a type of emoji, but Yorubas invented that so that they can hide some secrets from the person they call Ogberi, not to understand it. So I would say the conservationist mentality we have is one of those things that is affecting our culture. When you tell a kid not to touch a burning candle, you have to explain why. And also our generation was not trained to ask why. But the Gen Zs are now asking why. If you tell a Gen Z this is how these things, why are you saying this? Explain it. So I think we have to bring in explanation. You have to shalaye all those things.
First, let me commend you for the book you wrote, and that is Biology in Yoruba. Now, let's talk about documentations of all these things. We've been trying from mouth to mouth, kind of speaking our heritage, talking about things we do. But what is the role of documentation so that the next generation, even if they can't see the person, they can actually read the books? What is the role of documentation in preserving our culture?
I think one of those things that placed the Westerners above us was the discovery of books. It is one of the greatest inventions of men, because Yorubas believe in Akosori more. Even the poetries of Ifa, the 256 corpuses of Ifa, you have to put it in your memory. So now documentation is very important, and we have different. That is why I said Yoruba language is not going into extinction anytime from now, because we have people that are creating different contents. When we started the Yoruba, Biology in Yoruba on radio 8 years ago, the goal was actually to put an end to science illiteracy. As UNESCO stated that the goal is to put an end to illiteracy before 2030. It is one of the UNESCO frameworks. So when we started, there are many questions that came around that. Where are we getting our sources? Where we interpret different scientific words? I now told them that Yorubas were biologists too. And we have to bring science out of the classroom to the streets. If we want to evolve and become industrialized. Our science has been confined to the four walls of classroom, and also the Yoruba science and culture has been confined to only a few people that they call Onisese, Babalawo, Onishegun, and others. We believe they are the only ones that can practice it. Why not bring it to a level where people can study it just as they study medicine in the university? We have the Greek school of mythology where people study about the Greek culture. They study Socrates, they study Aristotle. Why can't we let people study the Yoruba ways of life too? By doing so, we would have records of our culture. There are so many books that are written by Yoruba authors that you cannot get in Nigeria, that you have to write the University of Oxford before you can get it. There are so many research papers that I want to have access to that I have to write the BBC before they could release it to me. That's what our government is not doing enough.
But do you really think it's about not studying enough? Because I know that there are some higher institutions whereby you can study Yoruba language, and some of these things are discussed in some of the courses, under Yoruba language as a course itself. But do you think it's more of students not wanting to study Yoruba language as a course?
No, it is the lack of incentive and encouragement. For example, from the government and also the society. When you want to do anything that is related to Yoruba language, there is always a criticism that comes from it. So why do you have to work on it again? But Yoruba language goes beyond our tongue. It goes beyond what we say. It has penetrated different ways of life. You can actually pick a part. There is a part of talking drum. There is a part of the Orishas who are understood as lesser gods to the main Olodumare. Even recently when I was listening to someone, he told me Yorubas had the record of unidentified flying objects, UFO, aliens, even before NASA or any European could know about it. And he told us different Ifa corpuses that mentioned even a planet called Venus. When he was saying it, I was just looking at him like, I have not heard of these things before. So there are so many things that you can't even understand until you are closer to those people that are custodians. Any word that you need in Yoruba language, you cannot get it from just a Yoruba language professor. It is only a deep babalawo that can tell you this is what this means. For example, I got a call 2 weeks ago when someone asked me the Yoruba name for calcium. He gave me different name. He said some call it sesefun, some call it this, some call it that. I said it is very difficult for you to give calcium a Yoruba name, but I will consult. And when I consulted with the people I know that knows more than I do, although they are not scientists, but they are traditionalists, they told me the difference between these things, and I looked at their properties. I was able to deduce, oh, this is what is closer to calcium. How many people can go deep as that? When we wanted to write the Yoruba, biology in a Yoruba book, when we started writing it, it took us 8 years of extensive research. Many people condemned it. We had no resources. We wrote letters to private investors. We wrote letters to government. We wrote different letters. No one turned up. Some even said, okay, they cannot make money from it just because it is Yoruba related. You can imagine. So capitalism has also found its way into our culture. They believe anything that is in Yoruba language cannot sell. So it took us 8 years to find over my partner. We self-published the book just because no sponsor, no one was ready to invest in it. So we have to provide incentives for the students and also the researchers that are doing their part to ensure the Yoruba culture goes beyond just sloganizing it. We should not turn it into slogan. We have to bring out the science in it. We have to let people understand that it is not only a babalawo that can understand the pharmacology part of a plant, the pharmacological uses of a plant, and also the pharmacokinetics part of a plant. We have to let them know Yoruba culture has these things too. We just don't have the English to garnish it.
Okay, I would like to know that at what extent can these custodian teach? Because when you are asking questions, they ask you of your religion. What are you? You say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim. Then tell, oh, you don't need to know this part. And really, I want to know my culture. However, I don't want to be a traditionalist. So, do you get? So, at what point is there going to be a line to be drawn, or do you think one can actually know the depth of the tradition, the culture, without being a traditionalist?
Of course, I myself am not a traditionalist. It just has to do with the hunger you have for it. I want to know this thing. There is something they call obu otoyo, salt. It is a type of salt that is found in Osun State. I wanted to know about it. I had to consult someone. He asked me, what do you want to use this for? I want a gap. There is actually a thing about traditionalists that they want to keep it to themselves. But once you let them know that I am not using this thing to earn money, I just want to create a record for our culture so that you know that I want to create a documentation. I'm very sure they will be ready to help. And the government and the lawmakers should also come in to regulate, to show the willingness, to make people understand that we are creating incentives, especially the five southwestern states and their governors. They need to come in to make sure they introduce different syllabuses and curriculum that will capture our culture, that will make them see the science part.
The role of the government in this. I think we all have roles to play. But before we go deeper on that, let's go on a break. We'll be right back. You're welcome back to the Mid-Morning Show, where we're discussing why Yoruba practices matter with Mr. Moshood Abiola, a Yoruba culture advocate. Now, before we went on that break, I said that as much as I see the importance of the role of the government, I think each and every one of us also have roles to play. you see parents say they don't want their children to speak Yoruba language in the house. You see some schools that say they don't teach Yoruba language in their own school. You see some students that write JAMB and then they give them Yoruba language. Maybe they wanted to study law and then the parent says, you write JAMB next year. So things like this, I mean, it's not the government's fault in cases like this. I think we all have rules to play.
We have to embrace. Yoruba people will not do or say some things publicly that are being said. Even our culture is so conservative that on the internet, the way some people explain reproductive system now, you will be wondering why are they doing this? Because the things kids are not supposed to be exposed to, they are exposing them to it. So we have to control as much as we have to create publicity in the right way. There are two ways to everything. So if you are creating publicity that our culture should be our way of life, our Yoruba identity is not demonic. Our identity is not what we should trample upon or let the Western culture erode. You talked about something that brought something to my mind. A strong sense of community is what the Yoruba practice is all about. They will say, oh,
we're talking about your neighbor, the kind of houses we are building now. You might not even know your neighbor, not talk of know the number of children that stays in there. However, how can we still, continue this Yoruba practices? How can what is going to make us different, and how can we contribute our Yoruba practices in this new era, considering the new realities we have on ground? So, like talking about the grandparents now, everyone is working.
Yeah.
So what about how can we still preserve our Yoruba practice?
Has to do with humility. If you are my neighbor, there is this ego among the educated elites. I pass my neighbor mentality, where we don't even want to interact with each other. Even if we are interacting, it is actually to show what we are achieving in our respective careers or fields. We have to come down to a level where we understand that you are a Yoruba, you are a Yoruba. What can we do together to make things happen in a very great way for our culture? We have to come around humility. We have to bring ourselves down we have to stoop to make the Iwapele come to pass. Iwapele goes beyond just going gently. It goes with interacting with the elder in a very respectable manner. It goes with ensuring the houses we are building is not just a flat where we confine ourselves into the fence. I know we have to consider security too. And it is just because we have imported foreign culture. That is why our security is even going haywire as it is. Because in Yoruba land, when you pluck some fruits in your farm and you put it on the bush side, there is always an aroko you put on it. No one dares touch it. They will honor it that someone is the owner.
Can we come back to that?
It's too late.
Okay, so